Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series Rescue the Rockies. And apologies that it's been several days since our last episode. A busy week at work for me. And I also have spent a lot of time offline just trying to figure out what, if anything, significant I want to do with this Rockies franchise in this 2037 to 2038 offseason. So, been perusing the major leagues and the minor leagues to see if there were any interesting trades out there. As we've talked about in the past few episodes, probably going to be a decent amount of turnover on our roster this offseason. So was looking for trying to maximize the potential trade value of as many players that we're considering moving on from as possible. Unfortunately, haven't seen anything really revolutionary for us to do. It's possible that we may just need to move on from some players and get nothing in return in an effort to improve our finances. We have made two trades already here, though, on the first day of the offseason that I think will start moving us in a good direction. The first, if I can find it here to bring it up, is a trade that we made with the San Francisco Giants. And we traded away minor league pitcher Willie De La Torre with his poor control. He was not someone that I viewed as a big-time part of our organization, so we're happy to include him. We included the first baseman Manuel Torres, who's actually a pretty useful bat against left-handed pitching. He struggled to find a spot with us in the majors the past few seasons. 56 at-bats a year ago, 60 at-bats this past season. He has been pretty productive in his small sample size in the majors. 6 homers and 21 ribbies in just 116 at-bats, hitting over 300 with a 139 WRC plus. So he's certainly a guy who has some value, also a really good personality class with that captain personality for the locker room, some other positive traits. But he is a guy who's been out of option years this past season and obviously going into the future, so always a chance that when we need to move him down to AAA that we would lose him. And he had a little bit of value in this trade situation, so he decided to finally move on from Torres, since given his defensive limitations, he's just not someone who I view as being a significant part of our future. Then we also had to get rid of first baseman Bobby Suzak, 21-year-old. This is a player who we spent decent resources on, was a 7th-round draft pick 3 years ago in 2034. Split this past year between rookie ball, A ball, and high A ball. Even in high A ball, he was extremely productive. 307 average, 17 extra base hits, and 34 ribbies and 153 at bats. Put up a 148 WRC plus. I think that his bat certainly can be a useful major league bat, but I kind of view him similar to Torres, only with even more defensive limitations. Now, he is 6'6", so looks like he can be a pretty respectable defensive first baseman. Can't really play him anywhere else, though, and I just don't think the bat is special enough that he's someone that we want to be an everyday first baseman or designated hitter. So we were willing to include him as well. We got one guy in return, left-handed reliever Jason McKinney. He is a guy who at this point had a small introduction to the major leagues with the Giants this past year. Pitched 30 games, a pretty ugly 5.59 ERA with very ugly 10 home runs and 24 walks allowed over 48 and a third innings. He is a left-hander, and our scout thinks he can get better. I will say he's almost 25 years old. He's going to be turning 25 years old on the 4th of July last year, so I question whether he's really going to be able to realize this untapped potential. but he's got good stamina. He's durable, and he's cheap for the next few years. You may remember that the veteran lefty reliever Wellington Herrera, we had a $5 million option on for this upcoming season. And after picking up McKinney in a trade, we decided he can probably handle a left-handed spot out of the bullpen that Herrera used to handle. Unfortunately, McKinney is not nearly as dominant against left-handed batters as Herrera has been, but he'll be making the major league minimum again next year, as opposed to the $5 million that Herrera was due for. So we decided, after we made the trade for McKinney, to decline our option for $5 million next season on Wellington Herrera. And that turned out to be a pretty good move because although we had to pay $500,000 to get him off the books, he's looking for a little over $2 million a year for 3 years. So he likely would have been very overpaid. Given that he's a lot cheaper now, we're still considering maybe bringing him back, but we are also in a situation where we've got a lot of decent young pitching prospects that are kind of 23, 24, 25 years old, and it might just be time to move on from Herrera and go a little cheaper for next season. And the second trade we made was getting rid of a longtime infielder Rosniel DePaula, who's now 29 years old. He has been fragile for an extended period of time at this point. He has been a member of all 5 of our 5 straight championship squads. Over the course of his career, he's been a regular for us at times. Pretty productive player, 103 WRC plus over just over 2,100 major league at-bats. 9.6 WAR for over every 162 games. He's been a 3 WAR player. But DePaula was set to be making about $8 million next year in arbitration. And given that he'll be turning 30 next year, he's fragile physically, and he's not as talented defensively as shortstop Elian Pena or versatile infielder Derby Mahez. We decided that DePaula was the guy we would move on from. DePaula also had significantly more trade value than the veteran shortstop Pena, who we signed a year ago. He's set to make about $11 million next year and essentially had no trade value whatsoever. So given that Pena is at least normal in terms of his injury proneness and really good defensively and had no trade value, we kept him around. And we got a pretty interesting player in return. You may remember the name Matt Stream. He's a guy who was picked with a supplemental first-round pick, 41st overall back in 2031, so over 6 years ago, game time at this point. Someone who we were hoping would fall to us in the second round. The lefty is kind of similar, honestly, to McKinney. He's going to be turning 25 years old next year. We say he's got a lot of untapped potential. At least our scout says that. But given that he is almost 25 years old and he's fragile physically, I don't think he's really going to reach this full potential. Did make his major league debut at the end of the year with Baltimore, put up a 2.35 ERA over 7 2/3 innings. Obviously an extremely small sample size. The thought is, though, that Stream gives us a little bit of depth in the organization as a potential 4th or 5th starter if we have some injury issues. Does have 1 option year left for next season with the way our pitching staff looks. I certainly don't think he's guaranteed to be on the 26-man roster. If we get real lucky with development with him over the next year and a half and he reaches 90% of the untapped development we think that he has, he could still become a pretty useful starter for us. As I said, given that he's almost 25 years old, I tend to think that most of this untapped potential will not be met at this point, and he's more going to be a back of the rotation, long reliever type for us for the next couple of years before he gets expensive. But at least we got something in return for moving on from DePaula. And that also put us in a situation where getting the potential $8 million that we were going to be paying DePaula next year in arbitration off the books has started us being able to open up a little bit of money to consider our options once free agency starts. Don't know that there's necessarily going to be any difference makers on the free agent market. Reuniting with our longtime left-handed hitting designated hitter Ted Miller could end up being our primary move in free agency this year, but we'll at least hopefully have enough money available that if we want to play in free agency and there happens to be a unexpected player hitting the market or a very interesting international free agent, perhaps we'll have the opportunity to do that. So as I noted, we've moved on from Ross Nile DePaula with the trade. That means we have made an offer in arbitration to Derby Mahez to come back. No surprise that we made offers to the starting pitchers, Bernie Barrera and Bob Russell. And I know some of you are less interested in Aaron Bell, but he still is a guy who's a combined 25-9 for us over his 2 years in Colorado. So we're going to intend to bring him back as a fourth starter next year. With the additions of both McKinney and Stream, however, I think we likely don't make an offer to Rich Hannon. He's a guy that will continue exploring whether we can pick up anything in the trade market with him. Not necessarily thinking we're going to get that much for him. He's been a solid reliever for us for several years now since we picked him up in that trade with the Padres. Actually been a member of all 5 of our championship teams over the last 5 years since he joined us. But I think with the money he's looking for, the 2 lefty additions that we've made to the pitching staff, and the fact that we do have, as I noted, a handful of guys in the upper levels of our organization that are ready to at least get a try at the major league level on the mound, probably time to move on from Hannon. So that leaves us with the big decision being what to do as our potential backup catcher between Nate Harris and Mike Girard. Ted Miller, I am going to submit a QO to. Still considering making a contract extension offer to him, but $23 million a year for 9 years for a guy who's going to be 29 years old and is a good left-handed hitter, particularly against right-handed pitching, as I talked about earlier, but doesn't really bring a ton to the table defensively, isn't a commitment that I'm willing to make before we go to get to free agency. If he opts into the QO for 1 more year with us, totally fine with him doing that. I don't know that he will. Mentioned that we got to figure out who's going to be the backup catcher next year between Harris and Girard behind Mr. Lee. Harris is a guy who is healthy and available since he joined us 3 years ago in that trade with the Yankees. He has played in 259 games for us, basically until this past season when we picked up Lee. He was our starting catcher more often than not because Girard, who was our de facto starting catcher, typically ends up hurt. He averaged 15 homers and over 50 ribbies in his 2 years as our starter, 5 homers and 18 ribbies last year. Harris is solid defensively, and he can handle the bat decently against left-handed pitching, which is when he would generally be playing in a platoon with Lee. Harris also expected to make material less money than Girard. Girard, former supplemental first-round pick 8 years ago, back in 2029. He has been with us in the majors for parts of 4 seasons, and he missed all of last year, so he's been a major leaguer for 5 years at this point, and you can see he's played in just 196 games, even though we've intended him to be our starter for most of that time period. Similar to Harris, does have a little pop in his bat when he's healthy. 32 homers and 115 ribbies and 675 career at-bats. He's got difference certainly between his lefty and righty splits, so he would fit in very well as a potential platoon guy playing against left-handed pitching. Remains extremely talented defensively. The issue with him is that, as I noted, he's missed almost 2 full seasons at this point since he got hurt in April of 2036. Still 3 weeks away from health since he had that big setback in his recovery from the torn PCL. Already fragile in terms of his injury proneness. Not going to shock me if he shows up as wrecked when he is finally healthy and well. He's set to make about $6 million next year. It's a number that we could afford, certainly a lot for a backup catcher. With the fact that Girard is still hurt, we're not eligible to trade him, which does make things a little trickier. I think there probably is still some value in his skill set, given that he's so good defensively. But given that we've only got, at this point on November 4th, 23 days until free agency filings and only 21 days until the salary arbitration hearings, don't think we're going to really have a good sense of what we can get in the trade market for him, and almost certainly won't even be allowed to trade him until we need to make a decision on what to do with him as far as his arbitration offer. And we've made a decision on our catchers, and I don't know that it will necessarily be a popular one with the worldwide scouting department, but we're making offers to bring back both Harris and Girard at this time. Harris still has 2 option years, Girard still has 3 option years, so if needed, we can stash one of them in AAA, admittedly at a lot of money for a AAA player. Gives us the opportunity, if we get banged up at catcher, to have 3 somewhat proven major leaguers for 2 spots with Harris or Girard in AAA. And it also gives us an opportunity to still potentially explore a trade of one of those players as the offseason moves on. Definitely can argue that we perhaps should have not made an offer to Girard and let him hit free agency, but not necessarily expecting us to be huge players in free agency this year. Feel like we've got the money to bring him back, and a 1-year deal at $6 million. Think that we could probably get that off the books if we needed to. Kind of stinks that we're not going to know about his health until we had to make a decision as far as arbitration. And because that's the case, we're just going to bring them both back and retain as much optionality as we can at the catcher position for 2038, since we are still definitely a win-now team. And you may remember that we lost the former first-round pick, the rookie pitcher Jeff Colson, in the World Series several days ago. Finally got his diagnosis, torn labrum that he suffered 4 days ago. He is going to miss 5 to 6 months, so that's clearly going to impact his entire offseason and spring training. Unlikely with that recovery time that he'll be on the 26-man roster when we break spring training and prepare for the beginning of the regular season. But it's also certainly not as bad as the injury that Kawakami suffered not that long before Colson. That's going to keep him out all of next year. Certainly not optimal for a 23-year-old who's already fragile physically to suffer a torn labrum. But Colson, similar to Matt Stream that we talked about earlier, likely to be in the mix next season at some point to be a 5th starter for us, or perhaps again a long arm out of the bullpen. And since we've now moved forward a day, we can check on Rich Hannon and shop him, see if there's any interesting options for him since, as we've talked about, I think it's unlikely we bring him back next season. He's been a good reliever. Looks like there are some options out there, not necessarily tons of them, but I'll take a look. If we're going to move on from him, probably makes sense to try to get something for him, even though it doesn't seem like there's anyone who's going to be a massive difference maker that's available. And there were a couple mildly interesting players available in the trade for Hannon. The most interesting was probably Ricardo Lopez, left-handed hitting outfielder who's younger than Ted Miller, similar defensively to Ted Miller, and also similar to Ted Miller, his pretty dramatic righty versus lefty splits. Looks like he can be a pretty useful bat against right-handed pitching. Lopez is a guy who was the Rookie of the Year 4 years ago, also won a Silver Slugger at DH that year. Coming off of a down year for him, just a .231 average with 17 homers and 59 ribbies. Issue is, although the $9.5 million next year is not bad, you can see that he's going to be making 14 the year after that, and then 20 the 2 seasons after that. I think I'd prefer to have Miller for next year if he opts into his contract with us. Feel like if Miller opts out of his contract and we have to tap the open market looking for a left-handed hitting outfield DH type, there likely will be options there. Probably won't be too hard if we decide we want to reconnect with the Diamondbacks on potentially bringing Lopez or someone similar to him on board. But right now, don't want to be guaranteeing him next 4 years, especially with the dollars going up. So we're going to trade Hannon for a guy who's cheaper, unfortunately not as good. Bob Essere of the Yankees organization, 26 years old. So although he, in theory, has some untapped potential, I think it's pretty unlikely that he's going to realize it. Did make his major league debut late in the season for the Yankees where he went 6 for 18. So he was pretty impressive there. Competent corner outfield type, decent speed. Most importantly, he's making the major league minimum and he's got 2 option years left. So he'll give us a little optionality in the organization if we have some injury issues down the line. So we are going to go ahead and trade Hannon for him. Just to get something out of Mr. Hannon, since we've decided we're not going to re-up him for around $3.5 million next year. That'll also free up some additional cash for us, which could give us a little more flexibility heading into the free agency period. And with most of our potentially big decisions made, obviously finding out what goes on with Ted Miller is going to be important. We're kind of putting the ball in his court. Happy if he accepts the QO and comes back for 1 year, but I don't really feel good about 9 years, $23 million a year. Clearly, we could probably sign him for less. Could probably get him for 6 years, around $20 million. But still not convinced that I want to make that type of commitment to Miller at this point, even though he has been a very good offensive player for us over the years. So we'll kind of put the ball in his court. If he opts in, great. If not, we've still got options when we get to free agency, and it lets us see another card or two in terms of whether there might be any international free agents out there that we're not expecting to hit the market that could be interesting for us. So between now and arbitration and free agency, the hope is to get all those arbitration offers that we've made signed and find out what happens in terms of award season. Rookie of the Year could be a huge battle between the second baseman, Johnny Castillo, and the left fielder, Mike Castro. Both had monster years for us. Would certainly anticipate that they finish 1-2 in the voting for a Rookie of the Year in most seasons. Now, we haven't looked closely at who their competition is, but we'll find that out. Castro as a former top 100 prospect, I think he's the number 21 prospect in baseball right now, is available for the prospect promotion incentive. Castillo was not a top 100 prospect, so unfortunately he is not eligible for that. We'll find out in 10 days whether either of them wins the Rookie of the Year award, and in the case of Castro, whether we might be getting a extra draft pick because of his success. And Castillo, the Rookie of the Year candidate that we talked about earlier, setback in his recovery from a knee sprain, but that only pushes him back a week, given that it's November 6th. Not a big issue at all. Didn't make any changes to what we were going to do in the development lab that we talked about briefly in a previous episode. A lot of pitcher focus this year. Melvin Reyes, Jesse Hoffmeister, and Mike Witherspoon working on pitch movement. David Guadron working on his arsenal. Leo Martinez, the veteran, working on endurance training, and Jake Lyons working on his control. Carlos Barrel Davia going to work on his gap power, and David Snacks Marsh going to be working on bat speed. Definitely a bummer that we can't get the likes of Castillo and Colson into the development lab, as some of the younger and higher potential players who are on our 26-man roster, or also on the 40-man roster, or just in the organization period, but still feel like we've got a good mix of players in the development lab for this upcoming offseason. And kind of funny, after missing most of the last 2 seasons, Mike Girard also all of a sudden recovering well. He's going to be about 100% in about a week ahead of schedule, so we may actually not have needed to make that offer to him, but we'll still keep it out there for the time being. I guess technically we could wait and see what he looks like on the other side. I tend to think we're going to want him back. And we can definitely withdraw the offer and still get him signed, because he's arbitration eligible. I think maybe we do that right now. And we'll check in with him again in a week, try to get an updated scouting report, and then if he's completely fallen off the map in terms of his health and his ratings, maybe we just let him hit free agency or try to trade him. Otherwise, we'll make an offer to him and try to bring him back through arbitration. And it looks like we weren't able to retract that offer quickly enough. You can see that we've got a number of minor leaguers who we've been signing. We've got Bell, Bernie Barrera, Dervy Mahez, Bob Russell, all signed. We've also made some progress bringing on a few minor league coaches that we need. But Girard inked the deal that we had offered to him, so he is going to be back with us next year. We'll see what he looks like in a week anyways. Hopefully we'll still have some flexibility this offseason if we decide we want to move on from him and or Harris once we get closer to free agency and see what the options are there. And as we head towards the beginning of award season, all of the arbitration-eligible players that we made offers to are now signed. Still have several minor league free agents that we have outstanding offers to. But you can see we're moving on from a fair amount of people in the upper levels of our organization by not making offers to them. Most of the guys we're not making offers to are unpleased with the level of playing time that they've been getting or how they're being used by the organization, so they're a little salty in terms of their attitude, so might as well let them leave the organization at this time. And we've made it to the start of awards season, despite the fact that we had incredible team defense, ranking second in defensive efficiency and first in zone rating overall. No gold gloves for the Rockies this season. And we do have a Mariano Rivera Award for a second consecutive season. And for a second consecutive season, it's not our closer who wins the Mariano Rivera Award. Donis Valer hasn't won it the last 2 years. Chris Kennedy, who got a first place vote this year, won it a year ago. But Justin Gibson, who's had a great run with us, now 30 years old, perhaps the finest season of his career. He has been incredibly consistent for us since he joined us back in 2030, member of all 6 of our World Series championship teams, 4-time All-Star, and now a Mariano Rivera Award winner. He's led the league in games pitched 6 straight years, led the league in holds 7 straight years, 14-6 record this year with a couple of saves, 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, and a 2.80 ERA with a 1.7 WAR. So an outstanding season for the reliever Justin Gibson, and he is your 2037 National League Mariano Rivera Award winner. And a couple of Silver Slugger winners here for our Colorado Rockies in 2037. Second baseman Johnny Castillo, the Rookie of the Year candidate, led the league with 38 home runs, also scored over 100, drove in over 100 runs, put up a 130 WRC plus, and in addition to being the NLDS MVP, making his first All-Star team, he now has a Silver Slugger Award, and as we've talked about, still expecting him to be a strong Rookie of the Year candidate, and we'll find out that tomorrow. Separately, Kevin Roberts Jr. named a Silver Slugger now for the 4th time in his career. The 3-time most valuable player, led the league in walks, on-base percentage, and OPS this year, while hitting .296 with 29 homers. Similar to Castillo, he scored and drove in over 100 runs and also stole 41 bases for us. Roberts Jr., who we picked 5th overall back in 2026, will finally be turning 30 next season. And Mike Girard now healthy. We've got an updated scouting report on him that just came through. Still fragile as far as his injury proneness, still outstanding defensively, and still looks like as a platoon catcher against left-handed pitching could be a pretty useful bat for us with that really good home run power. Also, hopefully it'll help us keep him somewhat more healthy. We do, as expected, have a Rookie of the Year, and it is Johnny Castillo, so the guy who will not allow us to have a potential prospect promotion incentive pick wins the award. Our buddy Mike Castro finished 3rd in the voting. Castillo pretty dominant, though, with 27 out of 30 first-place votes. As we talked about, Castillo hit .280, led the American League with 38 homers, had 111 ribbies, 4.3 WAR on the season with a 130 WRC plus. Second in the voting, Sam Ferris of the St. Louis Cardinals, hit .318 with 42 doubles, 2 triples, and 16 homers, put up a 148 WRC plus and a 4.2 WAR for the Cards. And Mike Castro finishes 3rd in the voting. He had the highest WAR of any of those top 3 in the voting with 4.7. Also led the league in most categories of the rookies, leading the league in at-bats, runs, and hits. 47 doubles, 5 triples, 14 homers. Also stole 38 bases for us. His 124 WRC plus was admittedly the lowest of the 3 Rookie of the Year candidates, but still a bit surprised that Castillo won it in such overwhelming fashion, but certainly tying for the league lead in home runs as a rookie, while also playing a pretty important defensive position like second base, is going to attract a lot of attention from the voters. And with the Rookie of the Year for Johnny Castillo now in the books, turn our attention to the big awards going forward, Manager of the Year and then Cy Young and MVP the next few days. Between Kevin Roberts Jr. and Leo Martinez, we've won either the National League MVP and or the National League Cy Young Award 5 straight years between those two. Martinez with the last 3 Cy Young Awards in 34, 35, and 36, and Kevin Roberts Jr. with MVP awards in 32, 33, and then 35. Tend to think we will probably get another Manager of the Year this year, as we seem to win that every year, and we obviously had a very successful season, but not necessarily thinking that either Roberts Jr. or Martinez is going to win the MVP or Cy Young Award this year. We'll see what happens. J.D. Lee, you would think, would get some votes for MVP also, but recall he didn't even win a Silver Slugger or a Gold Glove this year, so it would certainly be a upset if he ended up getting the MVP award, but you never know, and we will find out shortly. And as we anticipated, Toby Stavland with another National League Manager of the Year award. He has now won it for 8 consecutive seasons every year since 2030. We've won 6 of the 8 World Series over that time frame and have more often than not had the best record in the National League. So no surprise, but certainly 8 consecutive Manager of the Year awards is getting a little silly. And the 2 big awards in each league have now been decided. Incredible battle in the American League between Mike Ridley and Carlos Camarillo for the American League Cy Young Award. Carlos Camarillo, who ended up the runner-up, actually got more first-place votes with 14. The 27-year-old of the Twins was 15-10, while leading the American League in innings pitched and strikeouts with 300. WHIP, strikeouts per 9, strikeout-to-walk ratio, quality start percentage, and pitcher WAR. Going to have to have been a monster season to have that not be the Cy Young Award winner, and they go with Mike Ridley, a 28-year-old who looks like he, based on his profile, may have just caught lightning in a bottle this year. 20-2 record with a league best 2.21 ERA and 0.3 homers per 9 innings, had a WAR of 6. Certainly looks like with his profile would assume this is by far the best season of his major league career. He'd never won more than 12 games, never had an ERA within a run of the 2.21 ERA that he put up. Actually, that's not true. He did have 3.18 as a rookie, but big seasons for both Ridley and Camarillo. Ridley gets the award. In the National League, Leo Martinez did finish second in the voting as he was pursuing a 4th consecutive Cy Young Award and did get 6 first-place votes. But your pretty easy winner, Arturo Martinez of the San Diego Padres, the 25-year-old, 15-7, with a league best 34 games started, 232 2/3 innings pitched, 245 strikeouts. 6-1 strikeout to walk ratio, 65% quality starts, also led the league in FIP minus and pitcher WAR. Over in the American League, your unanimous MVP, Jose Estran of the Chicago White Sox. He's a guy we've followed closely over the years. 33 home runs, 105 ribbies, scored over 100 runs as well. Led the league in walks, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, WRC plus, and WAR at 8.6. Estran is now a 3-time American League Most Valuable Player Award winner. Over in the National League, Wyatt Langford with 18 first-place votes is your MVP. Led the league in 2 categories, triples with 11 and stolen bases with 67. Also hit 283 with 35 home runs, scored 115, drove in 99, 148 WRC plus, and a 6.5 WAR. recently turned 36 years old, and he now has the second MVP award of his career, and he joins that very select group of players who have won both AL and NL Most Valuable Player awards. J.D. Lee and Kevin Roberts Jr. were third and fourth in the voting. The rookie Johnny Castillo also received some votes. Second in the voting, Jesus Mendoza of the Pittsburgh Pirates, 37 homers, 100 ribbies, with a league best .584 slugging percentage. So we are now a week away from salary arbitration hearings and just over a week from free agency. So we'll sim through the next 9 days or so and take a look at the free agent market before we finish this episode. The big thing we're waiting to hear upon when we get to arbitration and past that before free agency is whether Ted Miller will accept the qualifying offer that we've given to him or not. Still looking for 9 years at over $23 million a year. So I think at this point we wait and see what happens, wait and see whether he opts in, and then if he doesn't, see what the rest of the free agent market looks like before we make a bigger commitment. And as we prepare for the beginning of free agency tomorrow, Ted Miller did accept the $21.4 million qualifying offer. So I really think that's probably the best case scenario for us as we try to set up this team to win again next year. Didn't necessarily want to make a huge long-term commitment to him, but he does remain a very effective hitter against left-handed pitching. Certainly would be a tradable contract if we decided we wanted to go in a different direction once we see who is on the free agent market. But with $21.4 million additional dollars now on our books for this upcoming season, our financial flexibility is probably going to be limited at the top end of the free agent market. And we've made it to the start of free agency. Take a quick look at whether there's any optically interesting international free agents, at least according to our scouts' initial and not particularly accurate assessment. Starting pitcher Hwang Oh-Yang, also known as Bleeder. Pretty good-looking 30-year-old starting pitcher, ground ball tendencies, excellent stamina, not that great at holding on runners. Righty's looking for $25.5 million. Don't know that we really need him, given our rotation, but he certainly is a pretty interesting-looking pitcher. Doesn't necessarily look like there's anyone else particularly compelling among this year's class of free agents. Take a look at the whole look of hitters out there. Connor Camo, the two-way player from the White Sox, looking for $79 million a year. That would be an incredible contract, but he is an incredible player. Hit .270 with 26 homers and 83 ribbies. Led the league with 108 runs scored. And on the mound this past year, he was 14-10 with a 4.24 ERA. Added another 2.7 WAR as a pitcher on top of the 4.7 WAR he had as a position player. So certainly a very unique talent to be hitting the market. Daniel center fielder. Right-hander, looking for $43 million a year. Certainly a highly regarded player as well. 3-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger at this point. You can see the rest of the crew of players who are out there with the fact that Mr. Miller opted in to another year with us by accepting that QO. Can't really see ourselves playing at the particularly high end of the market. Is interesting, this demand for second baseman Jason House, though, just $2.4 million. 28-year-old is fragile physically, Just put up a 135 WRC plus in a WAR of close to 4. Why did they let him hit free agency? I don't understand that. Was not offered arbitration and became a free agent. That seems like a very poor decision by the Chicago Cubs, because he was only due $1.4 million as his arbitration estimate. He's certainly a player I'd be interested in bringing on board. 1-year contract at $2.4 million, and then we've still got a couple years of arbitration control, which is the reason that I wouldn't necessarily make a longer offer to him right now. He's a monster against left-handed pitching. Not particularly good against right-handed pitching, but with the money that he's looking for, seems like a very interesting player to potentially bring on board for us. Take a look quickly at the top pitchers who are available on the free agent market. If I could click properly, that would be very helpful. We already talked about Hwang Oh-Yang. John Meadows, 31-year-old starter, lefty, good, solid major league pitcher, 6-10 with a 3.69 ERA and a 3 WAR this past year. Solid pitcher. Don't know that we really need him. Jason Brabeck, 28-year-old, fragile physically. The lefty was 11-6 with a 3.03 ERA and a 4.5 WAR this year. 3-time All-Star known as La Chispa. Certainly a good-looking left-handed pitcher. With his $38 million demand and the fact we've only got a little over $20 million available for free agents, don't necessarily think we're going to be big players in the free agent market this year, and certainly don't think we necessarily need to be, with the most significant departure this offseason, Wellington Herrera, the veteran lefty reliever, moving on. And then the fact that we traded away Rosnile DePaula. Those are probably the two most significant losses to our roster at this point, and I think those are both certainly survivable. So if you've got thoughts on what we should consider in free agency, would love to hear them. Again, with the money that he is looking for, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't consider bringing Jason House on board, capable of playing a number of positions defensively. His error rating is lower than I typically have, but I am a bit of a defensive pitching snob. The Penn State product, though, over the course of 3 years in the majors with the Cubs, has put up a 123 WRC plus over the course of 767 at-bats. He's been an above-average offensive player every year, averaged a 5 WAR over 162 games. Granted, he's not a particularly good hitter against right-handed pitching. I guess we can take a look at his batting splits from last year, and I mean, he still put up a 123 WRC plus against righties. He was much more effective against lefties with a monster 158 WRC plus, but still very effective over the course of his major league career against lefties, a 151 WRC plus and a 116 WRC plus against righties. I'm trying to find a justification for why the Cubs were not just ridiculously stupid to not give him $1.5 million or so in arbitration, but unfortunately I'm struggling to find a rationale for the Cubs. So perhaps there ends up being a bidding war for him, but certainly an interesting player for us to consider. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.